For decades, a silent crisis has swept across the country. From the East Coast to the heart of West Texas, population of the northern bobwhite quail, once abundant across the rolling plains, has declined by 95%. One man made it his mission to find out why.
I have a ranch. I love my quail, and I'm very interested in the quail ecology and biology.
Dr. Ronald J. Kendall is head of the Wildlife Toxicology Lab at Texas Tech University in Lubbock. He's also an avid outdoorsman and rancher. Over the last several years, Dr. Kendall has had a front row seat to the disappearance of the beloved bobwhite.
So in 2010, I would describe the habitat as being close to perfect. And by fall, the quail were essentially gone. And so people were asking me from everywhere, what happened? And so that's when I began to research possible issues related to threats to quail populations.
As a world-renowned environmental scientist and professor of environmental toxicology, today Dr. Kendall is often referred to as the quail doctor. In 2012, he and his team spearheaded an initiative to research and eventually discover the cause behind the destruction of Texas wild quail.
I saw it happen multiple times. The quail, we would flush them, they wouldn't go up here in a perch, they'd fly into trees. We also had found quail that flew into windows and doors at the ranch house, and I had no idea what was causing that phenomenon.
Dr. Kendall identified two different types of worms that were impacting the quail, the eyeworm and the cecal worm.
In 2013, we detected for the first time the rapid spread of particularly the eyeworm parasite infection in our wild quail populations. And it was another thing we identified is the eyeworm didn't exist just under the eyelid or under the nictitating membrane, but predominantly in the rear compartments or glands in the eye.
What followed was Dr. Kendall's relentless pursuit to break the cycle of parasitic infection in quail. Ultimately, he developed a medicated feed, which he and his team began testing and evaluating at demonstration ranches. At one site, wild quail populations saw a 500% increase, an unprecedented success.
We began to see birds that were healthier, first of all, as evidenced by body weight. And the other thing was we began to have larger coveys of birds. Instead of 10 or 12 birds in a covey, we would be at between 25 and 35 birds.
Building on continued success across more ranches, Dr. Kendall named his feed QuailGuard. In 2024, it became the first FDA-approved medicated feed for wildlife in their natural habitat. Dr. Kendall's son, Ronnie, designed and built a delivery system for the feed called QuailSafe.
The way the feeder's designed with the feed plate being tucked up inside the enclosure, there's no rooting or a lot of disturbance around that feeder, and that way all the habitat around the feeder's maintained, so those birds are safe coming and going. And then QuailSafe developed an electronic covey collar, and so what that element of the system does is it mounts on the feeder and it replicates a quail covey call to essentially bring in as many birds as you can during that treatment period when we are medicating the birds.
With QuailGuard combating parasitic disease and QuailSafe ensuring safe feeding, Dr. Kendall and his team have created a sustainable path forward for the northern bobwhite quail. But the mission doesn't end at the edge of the rolling plains.
We engaged the development of a mobile research laboratory such that we could deploy it in multiple zones across the rolling plains to look at the epidemiology of these infection events.
So this mobile research laboratory allows us to expedite those results that we get from those fecal samples and get those results to our landowners. We can do the entire thing right here, from when we catch the bird to when we send the results to the landowner. We don't even have to step out of that lab.
Dr. Kendall's work is more than science. it's a legacy of conservation, ensuring that future generations will hear the call of the northern bobwhite once more.